welcome to day 4, not day 8, day 4 of Family Camp Online. I know that we all wish we could be together, but I'm so glad that you've been watching along with these videos and hearing our stories for this week about Paul and Peter and John. And today our story is about Jesus, the most important person in the whole world, the most exciting character that you'll ever read about, and somebody who loves you very, very much. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you of where we've been so far this week. On Monday, we learned about Paul, and how Paul, oh boy, he was quite a mean character at first, but he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and everything changed. He made a new friend in Ananias, and he became a missionary, which takes us to day 2. On one of Paul's missionary journeys, trouble, oh man, talk about trouble. Trouble happens when his ship that he's on in the ocean gets shipwrecked. And as terrified as he must have been, as scared as his friends were, Paul stood strong and believed that God was in control, and he used that moment to encourage the people he was with and make sure they knew that God loved them and that they were going to be okay. And then yesterday we learned about Peter and John, how they were teaching about Jesus, and they came to this gate, and there was a man there who couldn't walk. And this man was begging and asking for food, and Peter and John healed him. They said, "Get up and walk," and changed this man's life forever. We learned that when we believe in Jesus, when he is the one who's in charge of our lives, we can be bold, we can be strong, we can be courageous and do big things for God, just like Peter and John. And today, we're going to talk about Jesus. Many of you have heard stories of Jesus, and you've probably even heard this story, but it's so important and so exciting that we should talk about it again. This is Jesus here, and he is doing his favorite thing. He's teaching children, which is also my favorite thing. He is there talking to the children all about the kingdom of heaven and about God and how they have a heavenly Father that loves them so much. And Jesus, as much as it looks like these children really liked him, he wasn't always so well liked by the grown-ups around him. If you see in the very back here of this picture, there's some teachers of the law, some Pharisees, some Sadducees, who are looking over, and they can't stand Jesus. They see him as a threat. You see, the leaders of the church at that time, the Jewish church, they were so threatened by Jesus because they saw his teachings as contrary to what they were teaching people. And they wanted everybody to obey the law and to come into order and to be easily controlled by them. But Jesus was saying, you don't need to follow these set of rules from the Old Testament anymore. I'm here. I'm the one who will make a way for you to be with God in heaven again. I am the Messiah. I am the chosen one, the one that God chose to make a way for all of you to be with him again in heaven. But the Pharisees and Sadducees just couldn't believe that. Things got so bad, that the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the leaders of the law, the religious leaders, they had one of Jesus' disciples, one of his close friends, betray him. Judas betrayed Jesus and brought Jesus before the Sanhedrin, which is like a big courtroom council of people, and he was being judged. And they charged him with a crime that he did not commit, something that he did not do. And his punishment was to be crucified. Before he was crucified, he was made to carry his own wooden cross, his heavy wooden cross, out to this hill. And he was beaten and he was hurt, and people had been spitting at him and insulting him. It was a very, very sad time. It was an extremely sad day. Jesus carried his cross, and it was very heavy, it would have been very hot, and he was in so much pain, all for something that he didn't do. And you know, Jesus, we've talked about how powerful Jesus is. Do you think that Jesus could have could have used his power to get out of the situation? Do you think he could have used his power to break free and to take control and to be in charge? He definitely could. He was that powerful. But he knew what God's plan was, what his heavenly Father's plan was. And that plan was for Jesus to die for the sins of all of us by being crucified. He knew this day would come. He knew this would have to happen. And so he very humbly and quietly obeyed. They took Jesus up to the top of a hill, and they nailed him to the cross, and they lifted up that cross. He was crucified next to two other men. These two men were thieves. They had stolen things, and they had also been tried and judged and found guilty and crucified as their punishment. And the difference between these two men and Jesus was that these two men over here were actually guilty. They had stolen, they had done what they were accused of doing. Jesus, he wasn't guilty. He was innocent. He was an innocent man, and a man who was also God. And here he was dying for me, dying for you. The people that were around yelled up at Jesus, and they mocked him and made fun of him. And it was so sad to see. His followers and his friends, where were they? They were nowhere to be found. But the woman who gave birth to Jesus, we hear about that story at Christmas time a lot. Mary, she was there. And she looked up and saw the baby that she had being crucified. After Jesus died, he was taken down from the cross, and he was cleaned up, and he was buried in a tomb. And tombs back in those days were like big, massive caves. And this tomb specifically had a huge stone rolled in front of it. And now people in the Jewish community, the people who had Jesus killed, they were afraid that, his followers would try to take his body and do something tricky. And Jesus had always said when he was alive that after he died and was crucified, he would rise again after 3 days. And they were afraid that the followers of Jesus would just steal the body and make up a story about how he rose from the dead. So they put extra security around. Now, as you'll see here, there's guards and soldiers by the doors. And there's this massive big stone and these guards at the door. So there's no way anyone is getting in to take Jesus out. But God, when he says something, it's truthful. And when he makes a promise, he makes it happen. And what happened was, after 3 days, Jesus, nobody came and stole him. He resurrected himself. An angel appeared, and he got up, and he broke out of the tomb, and the men, the centurion men, the guards who were there, they were blown away. They couldn't believe this happened. It was such an amazing sight that they fell to the ground in fear and trembling. And Jesus came out of the tomb. He rose from the dead. He rose from the dead. After Jesus rose from the dead, he went and visited his close friends. He visited them, and even they could hardly believe that Jesus had risen from the dead, even though he told them this was going to happen. And he had to show them the marks on his hands, the marks on his feet. And things were so different after that. Jesus had risen from the dead. There was now a way for us to believe and to know that our sin, the things that we do wrong, the things that we deserve to pay for, someone else paid for. Jesus paid the ultimate price for our sin when he was nailed to the cross and died for us. He died for you. He died for me. He died for your mom and dad and everybody else that you know and see in the world. He died for them too. I wonder if you know why. Why would Jesus do this? Was he just doing it to obey his Father? He did obey him, but he also did it because he loves you. He loves you. And he loves you so much that he would take on the punishment for things that you did, so that you could be right with God again and be with him in heaven forever. Boys and girls, if you don't know who Jesus is, if you don't know that he died for your sin, I would love for you to ask your mom and dad today, grandma or grandpa, aunt or uncle, cousin, brother or sister even, ask them to pray with you and to ask Jesus to come into your life and to change your heart from being one of stone to one that's open and soft and full of the love of Jesus. He can change your life forever. And when you believe in Jesus, your whole life changes, and every day from then on out, you live for Him. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our story today. We have one more story for this week, one more, and then Family Camp Online comes to an end. But I hope you've been having fun. Go and find your parent or whoever is there to help you and find our songs and our action songs, and go and sing, go and dance, go do some crafts and memory verses, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye!